Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharp, and your headlines for this week. Earlier this week, the complaints and pleas of investors, business owners, and hopeful retirees seem to have no effect on convincing President Donald Trump to reverse his massive tariff strategy. In fact, he seemed to dig his heels in further earlier this week, but that all changed on Wednesday when he announced a 90-day pause on most of the reciprocal tariffs that had gone into effect just hours earlier. Not sure if pressure from inside the Republican Party caused the reversal, but it caused the markets to rise. However, we have a long ways to go to recover the $6 trillion that was lost in the previous few days. Headline number two, two major figures in the Trump administration visited Arizona's legislature this week. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came to support some legislation that fits his Make America Healthy Again strategy, and border czar Tom Homan addressed a joint session of the legislature. Although a large number of legislators, all Democrat, walked out in protest as he started speaking. And headline number three, former Arizona Cardinals kicker Jay Feely told KTAR's Outspoken with Bruce and Gatos he's considering running for Congress. The 48-year-old former field goal expert says he's interested in Arizona's 5th congressional district, the seat currently occupied by Congressman Andy Biggs, who has filed a statement of interest to run for governor in 2026. Of course, if Feely does take the plunge and wins, it will open the door for hundreds of dad jokes about, kicking bills through the goalpost. Now, all we need to do is convince Kurt Warner to run for office. And speaking of replacing Andy Biggs, let's turn to our guest this week on the AZ Political Podcast, Warren Petersen, who joined the Arizona legislature as a member of the state house in 2013 after Andy Biggs announced he was leaving the state senate to run for Congress. Petersen ran for and quite convincingly won that state. Actually, it was the state house seat. Yep, my bad. Which covers a good portion of the Southeast Valley. At the beginning of Arizona's 56th legislative session, you were here, and I want to talk about some of your agenda items and how they've come along. But it's good to have you back on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. So let's start here, though. You served as majority leader of the state house while you were there. So you obviously like being in leadership position. So I have to ask, what's wrong with you? Why do you like doing a thankless job? Now you're Senate president.
Yeah. Well, I was a middle child, so I like to get everybody to
get together,
build a consensus with people. The benefit of being the president or the speaker, the majority leader, you're able to help set the agenda. You're certainly not a king, though. It's nothing like an executive branch. Everything you do in the House takes 31 people to agree with you, and the Senate takes 16 people to agree with you. So there are some things within your control, but at the end of the day, really, you've got to make sure you have a majority on anything that you want to accomplish. It can be frustrating at times.
So let's talk about trying to get your way as Senate president. You don't always, and you're right, you have to work with not only people that disagree with you in your own party, but the other party as well. When you were here last, back in November, you talked about how you wanted to spend your second term as president of the state Senate. You said that you wanted to speed up Arizona's really slow ballot counting process. You wanted to tackle the state's water issues, education funding, including increasing teacher pay, and funding public safety. Take on any one of those
Sure.
topics.
Well, yeah, we can talk about all of them. First of all, we put the bill to get election results night of onto the governor's desk very early in the session, just as we promised. Unfortunately, she vetoed that bill, so what we're working on right now is sending it to the ballot so the voters can decide on that. We have a number of water bills that are moving through the legislature. Those are starting to go to her desk right now. So we are delivering on the water issue. And as far as teacher pay, we've been working the whole session, stakeholder meetings, figuring out how to get a Prop 123 that we can get 16 senators and 31 House members to sign off on every week. I feel like we're closer, and then it's next week. Hopefully that will be going on the board soon for a vote.
I don't think I have to recuse myself from this discussion, although I live with a public school teacher, a public district school teacher, although she is very conservative, and her problem with increasing teacher pay is if you're increasing it across the board, even the bad teachers get a pay raise, which drives her insane. But you also we talked about funding of public safety when you were here last, and you did something that wasn't a piece of legislation or having the chamber vote on something surrounding the funding of public safety, but you wrote a letter to the Assistant Attorney General, the federal government, trying to keep the federal government from snatching away public safety funding in Phoenix. Explain that.
Yeah. Well, the DOJ is looking at trying to enter into a consent decree with the city of Phoenix, which means essentially that the federal government starts running the Phoenix Police Department. We've seen this we've seen it in Maricopa County, we've seen it all over the country, and it's an absolute disaster. The only people who benefit from this are the monitors who make a fortune and they're basically unaccountable. They have unbelievable power, and they make a ton of money. And, as I start digging into it, it seems like that's what's really going on. So I actually spoke to Pam Bondi's office about it when I was out in Washington, D.C. I talked to Tom Homan about it 2 days ago, and I wrote, of course, the letter that you're talking about, sent a letter to Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dilling. And I have a lot of faith in this administration. I think they're going to, I really feel like they will repeal the report. It's critical that we do, because nothing positive will come out of this. We have seen, first of all, the report was completely flawed, and there's a lot of opacity. The DOJ was not sharing their information. They were not sharing their reports. As we were able to get copies of transcripts and the notes from the DOJ and compare those with the transcripts of what officers actually told them while they were being interviewed, they didn't match. And so just the lack of credibility and the number of inconsistencies, I believe if the new DOJ leadership can take a look at this, I believe they will dismiss the report. That's the hope. I know they're extremely busy. Coming in, just starting, they've got a million things that they're looking at, which is why I'm trying to put it on the top of their radar, trying to make it, top of mind. And that's why, we're hitting it from all angles. Mr. Homan said he was going to talk to AG Bondi about it. We talked to AG Bondi's office about it. We're going to do a follow-up with her chief of staff in a couple of weeks, and of course the letter. So we're just we're taking every angle that we can here, trying to make sure they take a good look at it, and I'm confident. I feel like it's something that they will remove, because the morale is so low at Phoenix. From what I understand, this is why Paul Penzone left. This is why he resigned the sheriff's office, because he was dealing with one of these things where you literally have to get approval for everything that you do, and it takes forever. So you're not really in control, but you're responsible. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the worst places you can possibly be, is you're totally you're responsible, but you're not in control. And so anyways, we don't want that for Phoenix. Their numbers are the lowest they've ever been, or some of the lowest they've ever been, as far as how many officers they have, and we should be able to turn that around.
I always find interesting about Phoenix police is, if you look at similar-sized cities, similar-sized populations, look to Philadelphia. We're number 5; they're number 6. They have budgeted positions in Philadelphia for more than 6,000 officers, for a similar population, and a land area that is 1/5 the size of Phoenix. And Phoenix is only budgeted for a little over 3,100 sworn officers. So, less than half the size of a force to cover something that's 5 times the size, land-wise, and the same size population. It's like we're already starting out behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. No, totally. It's incredible the amount of land that they have to cover.
Yeah, and then perfect example, of course, right here in our own backyard. It's what they're estimating is like $316 million it will cost Maricopa County taxpayers to because of this federal oversight at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. So those numbers could be even larger for Phoenix, right?
It's a total racket. I mean, who has benefited from that $316 million that the taxpayer has forked out? it's not the citizens of Arizona. It's not the people in prison. It's literally these monitors. It's the
lawyers, and you're a lawyer.
It's
you're
the
part of the
lawyers.
problem. No, I'm just kidding.
No, trust me. I'm with you. I'm with you as far as the lawyers go. They're the only ones benefiting, and it's a total waste. And so what we need to do is we need the report rescinded, and we need. I think then you're going to see we're going to have really quality leadership come in. Yeah. Do they have some issues? Yeah. But let's have the council work on resolving those issues.
We have to take a second, of course, to talk about the tariffs on again, off again, and how this is going to affect Arizona. We had the largest business investment in U.S. history, foreign business investment in U.S. history, come here to Arizona in the form of Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. And I guess there's a little bit of worry out there that, here they brought manufacturing to the United States, doing what President Trump is hoping to accomplish with the tariffs, but now they might get higher costs on their raw materials to create computer chips. Are there any other areas in Arizona's economy that you're concerned about with the tariffs? And if you have a problem with the tariffs, you wouldn't be the first Republican. There's been many that have stepped up and said they're not a fan of them.
Here's what we know about President Trump. He's an incredible negotiator, and the tariffs that are being imposed upon us across the world are not fair. Our tariffs do not match their tariffs. Everyone else's tariffs are higher. So what does that mean? It means here we are paying out money and to everybody else. Everybody else is benefiting at the expense of the United States. And I think President Trump has said, enough is enough. Now, me personally, I'm a free market guy, and that's what I support. And I think President Trump does too. But when you have a country that's imposing tariffs, that's not free markets. So what we're starting to see, or at least I've seen at least 3 countries now, and this is the right way. They've all said, hey, look, we'll just cut our tariffs completely. So zero tariff, that's a free market.
Yeah, that's what the EU has suggested. Yeah,
exactly. And I think Argentina has too. So, or even if you're saying, you've got a 10% tariff, we've got a 10% tariff, at least that's fair. So that's more of a free market than you have tariffs and we have no tariffs. So, we've seen President Trump, he's now put this 90-day pause, and we saw the largest jump in the stock market in American history, or as far as points go. I think he's using it to negotiate and he's using it to make trade fair, because we have been totally taken advantage of for forever.
Yeah, but any concerns for Arizonans in higher prices, or Arizona businesses that might have to pay higher prices thanks to the tariffs?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we want everybody to have low prices. That's a no-brainer. But President Trump is implementing policies that are working. For example, we just saw this morning the inflation. There was an inflation number that came out this morning, the lowest in 4 years. It is the lowest inflation print that we've seen since 2020. I mean, that is incredible. It's just one report, so we'll see what happens. You got to look at it where we're at in a month from now. But we do know that when you're cutting government waste, the way President Trump is cutting government waste right now, government waste doesn't benefit anybody. That's inflation. These programs you and I were just talking about, that's inflation. Whenever you're doing anything that is not producing a good or service that can be exchanged for value, it's just waste, and that's inflation, and it's costing the taxpayer money. So those are the things he's going after. So far, so good. So, let's give his policies a chance to work.
I probably should have made the transition after we talked about public safety into talking about Tom Homan. But what did you hear him say in that joint legislative session that the Democrats missed out on by walking out?
Yeah. Well,
you wish they would have heard.
We've heard a lot. He's been saying a lot of it, and we've heard it, and it's refreshing, quite frankly, to have government doing what they actually say they're going to do and actually doing their job. I mean, it is his job to deport illegal immigrants. Hopefully, nobody's surprised that he's serious about that and doing that. I expected the Democrats to do something. I didn't know they were going to walk out. I mean, if that's how they want to politically express themselves, fine. It was disrespectful, but they can do whatever they want to do. The important thing is that we now have a Trump administration that is finally enforcing the law. We didn't need that bogus border bill that everybody was talking about. All we really needed was a new president. And so now we are seeing the border has the lowest crossings ever on record. It's the safest border ever on record. So the things that he said, that he's going to be tough, and part of it is what he's saying. He's going to be tough. They're actually going to enforce the law. They've started with the most dangerous, and they've had some collateral, non-dangerous people from that, but they are going to move to anybody here illegally. They're asking them to go home, voluntarily, so they don't have to deport them, but they are going to be, as soon as they, this priority of, with a resource, in law enforcement, it's always priority because you never have enough resources to
go after everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, what's the most important? Well, they're starting with the criminals, and they are going to shift. We had a closed door little round table, and one of the things that he did say is that for that part of the operation, they are going to need some more funding. So they're asking Congress for more funding. But right now they've been very effective as far as removing the most dangerous illegal alien criminals from the streets.
Well, and I talk pretty regularly to the sheriff of Cochise County. He's kind of a family friend too, and he said he's just seen a remarkable difference as far as that goes. Mark Daniels down there in Cochise County. So I know you got to get back to your job as the Senate president. But before I let you go, we're about 3 months into this legislative session. What battles do you still have your eye on? What things do you want to accomplish still?
Well, we would love for the governor to sign our water legislation. We've got real solutions in there. Of course, we have to get the budget done. So that's coming. And
how big of an issue is this right now?
The budget?
Yeah.
The budget is always the biggest issue.
Of course. It's money, right?
But we'll get through it. We always do. So yeah, but that'll be the final big thing that we get done, but we'll get that done, over the next little while here.
Okay. Any other bills that you think are going to pass both houses of the state legislature, but Governor Hobbs is just not going to be interested in signing?
She had a border plan, and the sheriffs opposed her plan, and they didn't even know she had the plan, even though she said that she talked to him about it. My plan is supported by the sheriffs. They vetted it. They came and supported it, spoke in favor of it.
What does it do differently than what she had in mind?
Well, what it does...
though she might not have shared it with anybody.
Well, I will tell you, just in general, just to be broad, she has always focused more on the humanitarian portion of the border, which is, taking care of people. That's fine. Our focus is on detaining and deporting those people who are here illegally. So what the bill that I have is very reasonable. It simply says that when somebody's arrested, that they'll contact ICE. ICE will be contacted, and that ICE detainers will be honored. So you will hold them. We're seeing in other states, and we don't want this to happen here, we're seeing people release. Knowing that they're here illegally, they're releasing them back into the community. So this would make sure, first of all, the people who are here illegally do not get released back without giving ICE an opportunity to come pick them up. And then the second thing is, we don't want cities and counties doing anything that obstructs the Trump administration as they're enforcing the law. And so it just simply says you can't pass an ordinance or a law that says that will somehow obstruct or stop the enforcement of illegal immigration.
Okay, so it's more of a shall as opposed to a may put an ICE detainer on?
Yeah, well, it's you need to honor ICE detainers, okay. And it means you need to hold people until ICE comes to pick them up. You're not going to let people in the street. And if you just think about it, it's just common sense that this is so much safer for ICE. They come up and pick them up from a prison or a jail instead of going into a community, or now you got to go track them down, and you could have innocent people around, and so that gives you. So it's a much safer way to do it.
All right. State Senate President Warren Petersen. Appreciate your time again.
Thanks for having me on the show.
You bet. I'm Jim Sharp. We'll see you soon on the AZ Political Podcast.
Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast with Jim Sharp. Click the box to watch more from KTAR News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.